I do a lot of work in Germany, and I was approached by a German theatre and they asked 5 European playwrights to take on the Odyssey, and I read it as a boy, of course, you know, and but straight away, and I suppose now being a man, straight away the characters that I really identified with were the immobile people, the people who sort of who hadn't lived, and who yet to sort of, you know, make anything of themselves. So I could identify with that very quickly, and the sort of the whole sort of geography and the heroics and the various sort of colours that Odysseus must have seen, and the potential sort of love affairs that he must have potentially sort of had, just seemed very, very interesting, that they never existed on stage, that they were always sort of surrounding the set somehow, or we ignore them somehow, or what must these men be thinking about the life that he's living and the life that they could have had. So as a starting point, when they said to me, would you do something on the Odyssey? I said, I will, but I'd love to do the suitors, and just the suitors. I'm fascinated with them as characters. And that's what I went at with, and I've had a relationship, I suppose, now with Michael, with 2 shows, and with Druid, and absolutely adore the company to bits, and wanted to write something sort of, although it was for a German theatre, I had the English rights, and I really wanted to do something with them. I figured it might be a decent enough match, and that's when he came in. All the rest.
So what tends to happen with the plays that we've been doing over the last number of years, and those of you who have seen the Walrus farce have also seen Dennis and Tig before. We would I end up in Enda's house at some stage, and we read the plays quite a lot together and just start settling into a rhythm with it, because we would both have certain sensibilities around how quickly, you know, the plays will either make sense to us or not make sense to us, just literally in terms of the way they might go across when we put them in a theatre. I think people who have seen this play, obviously tonight, and then other plays of Enda's as well, there are things sometimes that you look at in this place where you think, okay, if you turn the page and it describes a quick change routine, you think, now what am I going to do? You know what I mean? I've got people through the play thus far, and I turn the page and Quinn starts into a quick change routine. I'm starting to go, oh no, he's done it again. But it's a question of trying to understand, you know, the balance between what should be inherently theatrical and also what should be writer driven. And I think he, not just because he's here, but he writes exceptionally brilliantly. As an actor, I find, I don't know, the boys will tell you as well if we would talk to them in a minute, the language goes through your mouth very easily as an actor. It's built in such a way that it tends to be very easy to say. I think Tig and Dennis, Olga obviously doesn't say much in this play, but would agree, I'm sure. As an actor, it's very easy language to work with. What is interesting, I think, about it as well is that as actors, we have, when you read the plays, I think you tend to finish the play and go, this is fantastic. I don't know why, but I think it's fantastic. And I think the manifestation of that is your experience with the play, because I tend to say to people that sometimes people can, you know, live with these plays for a couple of weeks afterwards. You know, if we meet again in 2 weeks' time here, then we'll all get into a real bun fight about this play, because it'll have settled into your subconscious even, you know, further than it has tonight. One of the things that I think tends to happen on a first receive of an Enda play is that the writing tends to go straight to your subconscious. And I think that's an interesting thing for an audience to experience, that somehow about 10-15 minutes into the play, your subconscious is talking to you going, I think there's something a little bit more disturbing or annoying or unfathomable about what I'm receiving firsthand going on in this. And that's what I like about it. Do you know what I mean? There are times you get frustrated with it and you're looking at it going, what am I saying? What am I saying? Why am I not making sense of this? Oh, I think I'm making sense of this. But your subconscious is always working away going, okay, no, this is okay, this is okay. This is going to make, you know, sense to me at some stage, and I like that about it. It's very bold, very, very bold.
it's amazing because it's so funny, but it's really, really, really dark, as you have probably witnessed a number of times. But what I find with Enda's work is that the process, the 4 weeks of rehearsals to get to be where we are now, is hard work. But once you get on the train and the train starts moving, it's actually not a difficult job for an actor to do. It seems that it is, because it's so energetic and it's so complicated to some extent. But actually, when you find the language that he gives you, and actually I disagree with Michael slightly. I found the language in this play more difficult to be natural with than I did with the Walworth Farce, for example, because this is stranger. I know the Walworth Farce was to some people bonkers, but this is deeper. For me, this is a more complicated play, and actually the work was more complicated. And you know, who am I to judge? But I think the writing has gone to another level, because this is very, very much what I call a naked piece, not just literally naked, but it's a naked piece from the writer's soul, I think. I mean, because he's really putting it out there and going, why are we here at all? And you know, he has this amazing ability to bring an audience into a play, and you think it's something, and then it completely changes, and by the end it's not the play you thought it was at the beginning. And that takes a lot of hard work, but when it gets there, it's actually not that difficult to do. So I wouldn't want us to be overpraised for what we're doing, because actually once you get on that train, that he's, as Susan says, that he has written everything, then once you're on that train, it's fine. Well, for example, when the speeches start, like everyone gets a big speech, okay, which all actors love, because we're, you know, that's what we're made of. But they're terrifying things to do, nevertheless. And to find a journey into those speeches is a very interesting journey. And it's only, I mean, up until we came to New York, the last speech that I make about my mother, I used to walk to the balloon and use the balloon as a way to get into the, you know, the first line of the speech is, gravity should at least take some of the blame, which seems a little bit out of character for the character. But I used to go to the balloon and stand in the middle and give the whole speech in the middle. And I don't think Enda was ever very happy with it. I wasn't sure, and I don't think Michael was sure either. And we at the end, when Quinn leaves, the three men that are left, we were all thinking about our own deaths, which are inevitable now, and they're only around the corner. So we didn't communicate with each other at all. But since we came to New York, we've actually played those lines to each other, and my gravity speech now starts as a conversation with the other two characters. And actually it works better for that. So now that's taken 60 shows. So that's just a little example of, and you could probably do every line in the play and say that certain things change in the process. And sometimes maybe not for the best, but that one certainly from the inside feels better.
The pieces really changed for me, because I never know what the hell the play is initially, and so it can be a bit sort of frustrating. I know it sort of innately, of course, but it takes a lot to sort of drag it out of me what it is, and so it's changed a hell of a lot, and you begin to see, you can't see the joins of it later on. Like you know, I can see it sort of. I've never written a piece like this before. The previous two pieces, if anyone to see them, really mines the characters' lives and mines history and storytelling, and the characters tend to sort of talk about their lives again and again and again. This has got no direction, this piece. There's no sort of, and I've never written like that before. There's no sense of, you know, a future for it, or a sort of it's propelling on anxiety, just pure sort of anxiety, I feel. Death, you know, like, and all of that, and that I suppose is why it makes it actually sort of for me, very sort of naked, because it's sort of, I suppose in the previous two pieces I might have been hiding behind the fact that, you know, I was an old woman pretending to be 18, or a crazy man in a flat, in an apartment, or, you know, like, you know, teaching his sons to do a farce. Although, you know, there's men in Speedos here, I can relate to them much, much more quickly. And although there's a woman waiting for her husband here, I can really sort of relate to sort of, you know, a life lived, but really, really only sort of barely lived. So it's becoming clearer to me as a piece, as the more I see it. But it's a much harder watch than anything that I've previously sort of been involved in for all of those reasons. No, cutting. We've done cutting, and we did cutting in the preview, but no rewriting. I only ever rewrote one line in the last sort of 3 plays, and it wasn't until a year later of performing it with the line in it that we had to remove it. I realised that it was a terrible line, and it's sort of, because I really sort of, I suppose the whole sort of process of theatre making and what I'm sort of excited about, and watching the actors, and what makes the actors still such a massive creative force, is that we're trying to sort of recapture sort of an instinct that I'm not aware of, that I know must happen within, sort of, that writers must all have. And that sometimes in the writing process, you forget about that instinct. You must go through the craft of it and create a work. But the instinct, the very sort of kernel of what you're trying to sort of get at, exists, and then the actors somehow connect with that. And that's all the process is, really, is trying to sort of connect with sort of day one of a writer trying to decide what the hell they're going to do and what they're sort of writing.